Hello and welcome to the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is Dave Warburton, and today I am joined only by Mr. James Kendall of James Kendall Estate Agents and Co.
No,
James
not
Kendall
anymore.
Co. James
Thank you.
Kendall.
We rebranded.
James Kendall Move. James Kendall. One of them.
That'll do. David Warburton of Wheelo, Cape, and James, your move.
Anyway, joined only by JK, James Kendall. For the regular listeners, you might be surprised to hear it's half term and Ian is on holiday. He is skiing this time, I think. So he's not able to join us. He's hardly got a signal, which probably suggests that this is going to be one of the best TCA podcasts of all time. Okay, let's move on with our usual tradition. JK, how the hell has your week been?
Good, mate. Yeah, full of ups and downs. We've had obviously inevitable that stuff's going to fall through when you sell so many. I think we agreed 19 sales so far this month. Which
JK, can we just take a moment? That is outstanding. I know for some big estate agencies that will be meat and drink.
Corporates will be like,
yes, I know. But listen, when you have got an average fee like yours, and you are an independent that has built a brand that you have, made, that is some going. So if you could play a round of applause when you edit this pod, that would be more than just well done.
I edit this one, so I'm more than happy to beef it up. Maybe I might put a bit of the intro, like 19 sales. And then I might actually use AI.
Sorry, just to interrupt. You know that me and Ian will be in the pub when you have about 10 followers.
Yes.
Raising a glass.
100%. I mean, I've had a couple already as it stands. It's one of those things, par for course, where you almost I kind of picture it before, where you're going down Miami Boulevard in a convertible Porsche, like the sun's shining, the music's blaring, like all of the beautiful women are looking at you, like nothing can go wrong, and then you just know that inevitably that it's going to rain, and obviously it hasn't not rained for a single day in England so far this year. But anyway, focus on the positives. We're also about to wrap up one we've got at 900, which is really good. That's been on for a little while now. Had two people dependently after it, and they have both just sold. So that's nice. One of the deals we wrapped up was the barn at sort of 2.2. We've got a second viewing booked on the £3 million that we've got, which I'm crossing my fingers for. So hopefully we could, despite the fallers that we've had, we could have a really good month, record month, which would be great. And obviously I've talked to you about that behind the scenes, about what that might look like for us from a financial standpoint. But our 10,000 market updates have just landed this week as well. Just what you need when you're really busy is even more busy calls for Vals, and it's great. Today I'm going to shoot a house at 1.4. That's a nice one. That should be relatively straightforward sale. We've listed a fair few. We've got still stuff that hasn't launched. Launched one yesterday at 750, which is one of the best roads in the village I live in. So that should go. I've already had interest on email from that. So look, to be honest, we're in pretty good shape. We had a slow start to January. January was still a good month, reasonable. But February's been absolutely incredible, and it seems to be getting better, to be honest. So I'm sure we'll dive into some more detail as we go through the pod. But how has your week been, David? Sorry, Dave. Dave today.
Yeah, thanks. Get it right. I'll change next week. Good, JK. Good. We are ticking over nicely. So I think I said we were negging 10 offers last week. We've managed to get 4 of those, actually. It's 11 offers, got a new one in this week, but 4 over the line in the last week, which is great. I'm just looking at some of them here. What's interesting for me is that everything at the moment is in what I like to call the gold dust range.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I heard that before.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is the gold dust range?
It's kind of like when you get those houses between maybe 450, 500,000 and $1 million.
Okay.
When you get in 2% fees. So
nice.
I like to call it the gold dust. And occasionally there's a movement and it's hashtag gold dust.
Nice.
It trends worldwide. But I've got Yeah, so there's like, I'm just looking at the ones here. So I've got one at 450, which was, I love those houses. 4-bed detached executive house, really photographed really well. Go on, fly off within 2 weeks. Great houses. I'd take them all day long. 535,000. We've got one at 700, one at 800, one at 900. So nothing over $1 million, which it's quite telling actually for my area.
Peasant.
And what's that?
So I spat. I went peasant.
But what I would say, I mean, we've got activity on some of the over $1 million stock, quite a bit of activity. But what's been quite telling for me is that particular market in a certain area is a little bit sticky. We have one particular homeowner who is, they need to start moving. They need to start moving along. And we had like a serious conversation where I sent them loads of stats about the local area. It's bombed. Their area is bombed. I can't remember whether I did mention it on last week's pod or the week before, but we had a timely intervention where the local press, like Manchester Evening News, reported the 8 worst affected areas in Greater Manchester, and it was that was the headline. And in my head, and I just knew their house, their local area was going to be on it, and it was perfect. So I sat down. I was actually in a viewing at a really nice house at the time. So I just went into a room on my own quietly, sat down on the sofa, and I recorded a video. So I recorded a video, and I said to the homeowners, "Look, I didn't want to make this video. I don't want to come across as negative at all. But we've been having conversations about your house price, and I think if anything ever backs up what we've been talking about, then this is it. This is the time for concern. You've been telling me now for the last few weeks that the move has to happen this year. We've tried your price. It's not worked. But if this article is not what you need to hear right now, in the nicest possible way, I'm not sure what is." So I really wanted to record the video because they could see the whites of my eyes. It was tone of voice. They could see I wasn't being derogatory or anything like that towards the area, the house. I was just saying it's hard facts. Your house is absolutely beautiful. Whatever ceiling price is for your house right now, it is capable of getting it. But what I'm telling you is, and what the market is telling me, is that the ceiling price in your area has changed. Please read this article and then come back to me. And they came back to me the very next day. They came back to me straight away, say, "Thank you, David, appreciate it. We'll digest it and come back to you." They came back to me the very next day and reduced the house price by 12% JK.
Wow.
Yeah, so the area itself has dropped. The actual micro postcode has dropped 15%. The area in which they sit is 8% overall, and that was what the article in Manchester Evening News was saying. So a bit like what we've been talking about, can you get them onto the next price banding down? So the drop would have taken them to about 1,060,000, and I said no. It needs to be a million. So guess what?
Go on.
Guess what? We've got loads of viewings on this next couple of weeks.
Not that house.
Well, there you go. So it's what the.
It's almost like you know what you're talking about, Dave.
But the truth is, JK, that house in my head, and according to the market, is worth more. But the problem is their area is trending downwards. So if you sit there and don't take action, then you're not going to move. And this is what I'm trying to say to a lot of people. You've got to take action. You can only work to the market that you're in, not the market that we were in. And the absolute reality is that your market is absolutely plummeting in the local area. So if that's not good reading for you and you don't want to move just now and you want to see what the market does, that's okay. That's fine. Let's have that honest conversation, and maybe you can try again in 12, 18, 24 months, whatever that works for you. But you've told me you need to move this year. And, bless them. They're in the early to mid 70s probably. And it is very much their last move. They want to be near family and friends and stuff. And with people like that, I genuinely think you can have the conversation with, what does £100,000 do to your lifestyle? How does that affect your lifestyle? If you're telling me like that £100,000 that you thought you were going to bank absolutely kills any move and you can't retire, understood. Let's have a different conversation. But realistically, does it get you closer to your grandchildren? Is that more important than the £100,000? Being with your grandchildren every week and being closer so that you can walk in distance to your parents, all that sort of stuff. I think you know the answer to that. So what is it you want to do? And those are the conversations we've been having, but it was quite an interesting one, especially because obviously I think it depends where you are, but what I'm seeing is a bit of positivity in the news about the markets.
Yeah.
When you look at things like, we'll go through it shortly, but the Rightmove HPI has come out, and what people see is, the market looks like it's going to go up 2% this year. And then what you have to do is say, well, that's based nationally, but if we look at your micro postcode, that's not what's happening at all. We have to be realistic. So, there is positivity out there, but ultimately it's still incredibly price sensitive. So, it was just an interesting chat that I'd had, but I don't know where I even got to that, to be honest. Digressed. But the week has been decent, and I've got we've had loads of vals, JK. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in photography all ready to go on the market.
Nice.
Yeah, we're negotiating some really good offers. Did an off-market one as well, which I was quite happy about. So
yeah.
So this is the power of TCA. And what happened was I got a phone call from Aidan, good old Aidan from Stories, and one of his clients, one of his potential buyers had been viewing one of theirs. And he said that they obviously had the address and said, what are you doing? Yeah, well, we need to sell ours to move, but we do really like this bungalow that you've got. So we're going to arrange some valuations. And Aidan rang me, and I think, to be fair, it was Meg who got the lead. But it just so happened that this house was round the corner from me, from where I live. Yeah. So he'd rang me. I rang her the same day. She said, yeah, definitely come and see me. I went to see her. The sort of the move is probably a bit further away than maybe first thought. However, I then said, but do you know what? I've got a buyer who's looking right around here. I think they're perfect for it. If they can pay you what you want, would you move now? And she said, give me 24 hours. She came back to me and said, yeah, if you can get me 900 on this, we'll move now. Now, I've got a guy who's got a £1.75 million house. I think I've already got a buyer for that, but they will not let them view it until they've found something. So I took this guy around to this one yesterday that's been introduced to me. I took him for a second viewing yesterday. They love it. They've made me an offer this morning, which is a bit shy of where it needs to be, but there's definitely something can be done.
So you need to say to her, and he's going to market, and you need to give you a show-stopping offer to keep it off the market.
Yes, that's
one of my lines.
It's going to have to be a showstopper to stop the competition. Now, the worst case scenario on this is, I think, that the offer will probably get rejected at the level it's at. It's not a million miles away. It'll probably get rejected at the level it's at. However, he has said to me, look, David, if you can get me what you think you can get me on mine, I will pay them what they want on theirs. So I think I've got the buyer for theirs, and I think they will pay them more than what they were expecting to get, which means that obviously that domino effect is in play. And that's ultimately what the job's all about. And that's only.
Can I just say, what in the estate agency is going on here? So what you're saying, you didn't put it on Rightmove?
No, it's not on Rightmove. It is not on Rightmove. So
you actually built a relationship with the client and used your existing network to help sell this house without putting it on the internet. What is this?
Absolutely. And do you know what, as well? There was another, a bit of an eye, not an eye-opener because it's obvious, but last week I've taken someone for a third viewing on a property that they're just trying to get their head around. And this particular property we've got is really niche. It's a semi-detached home, but it's massive. It's like 5,000 square feet, bigger than most detached homes in the area. The price per square foot in it is 20% lower than certainly the asking price is 20% lower than market value. And this is what I've been doing. I've did some additional marketing on it saying, please don't overlook this semi-detached house. I think I've told the story because it's as big as the detached homes. And price per square foot is cheap. Now, this guy went to view it with our viewing assistant, and he'd said he really liked it and was going away to have a think about it. So that was the feedback that we got from the team when they rang in. So if there's somebody really hot, I'll give him a follow-up. So I just give him a ring, had a chat with him, and he said to me on the phone straight away, do you know what, I've thought about it, I've ruled it out. I said, oh, right, why is that? And he said, it's just overwhelming. So overwhelming. It's massive, the house. And to be honest, I don't know how we will use the space. I've got one child who will be going to school just down the road, but the other one's at university. I feel like we'll be pottering around in it. I said, all right, no worries. Well, what else are you looking for? Let's have a chat. And he's very money motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, let's just go back to this other one. Because the one that you're going viewing tomorrow with this other agent, I know about it because I've been chasing it. And it's nowhere near as good a value. Yes, it's detached, but it's half the size. It's hardly got a garden. Yes, it's gated, but it's from what you're telling me, I don't think that's right for you. Go and see it, but do me a favour, come and meet me at the other house. Let's go and meet and show your family around this other one that you've been to. And he said, all right then, no worries. So he did. So I met him. He went and viewed the other one. He said, you were right about the other house. It's not right for us. And I showed them around again. And anyway, the family were like jaw-dropping, like, oh my God, I absolutely love this house. And he said, I'm so glad you brought me here again, because I'd ruled it out. And then we started talking about the price per square foot, and his mind started ticking because he's money motivated. It's just like, right, so you're telling me this is like 190 a square foot and the average area is 250. I'm like, yeah. He said, so if we change, and one of the stumbling blocks on it is the garden. And he started thinking about ways he could change the garden, moving it from sort of where it is and making a nice area at the back, because they don't need a big garden. They just want somewhere to sit out and all that. I'm saying, yeah, honestly, mate, if you did that, the saleability of this house increases massively, because that's been the major feedback. And I think you'll probably add some value by way of saleability. And he started ticking again. He's like, right, okay. We absolutely love it. We love it. Let me take some time and I'll come back to you. So he went away, came back to me. He said, can I have a third viewing? I said, yeah, of course you can. No worries.
Can I have a fourth viewing and a fifth viewing? Are you going to make an offer, mate?
I know, but to be fair, it's a big decision on this particular house. And he brought somebody with him to have a look at all the stuff. Anyway, that house is going to go under offer this week. Full ask, and it's come from just doing some probing and not giving up on the viewing feedback. And I think that's the kind of market that we're in. I don't know how people are structured with viewing feedback and things like that. I think when you're in busy independent agencies like ours, I'd be surprised, JK, if you're doing the viewing feedback. I don't. But generally speaking, if there's somebody that's shown interest or said something really positive about a house, but maybe is non-committal, I think having that conversation with them and really probing and using your experience as a negotiator, etc., just to get into the detail can be valuable. If nothing else, if they don't go for that particular house, this is how the other ones come about. I managed to get into the evaluation at their £1.75 million house. They're now buying this off-market one potentially. It's just about planting seeds and keeping in touch. And when
do you know what it is as well, mate? It's asking the right questions. Because, when somebody, I think I said it ages ago on an old pod, what have you seen on Rightmove that you would have bought? So when you're in the house and you ask
them, I love that question.
Are you feeling this house? Are you feeling it? To be honest, I'm not. I always, when I introduce the viewing at the start, I'm going to say that I'm not your typical agent. I'm not going to say this is the kitchen, this is the lounge. I'm not going to try and oversell the house to you, because I'm here to show it, not sell it. But what we will do is have a good look round. I'll point out anything you maybe need to know. Try and answer any questions that you've got. And we'll just have a bit of a chat about how the house works and how it maybe could flow and work for you. And I've won instructions off the back of, £2.25 million house I sold last year. I got off the back of just asking great questions on a viewing. And it's not just sales spiel, by the way. It's because the person that you're showing around actually feels heard. And, the agent's actually engaging, rather than going, hi, this is an amazing lounge. Look how glorious this radiator is. Look at the bay window. Fantastic. You don't get me wrong. You've got to big it up, but at the same time, how would you use this room? How does this room feel to you? What does this house give you that your current house doesn't? And questions like that. So, mate,
I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. It's not about saying, "Oh my God, look at that view! Look at these aluminium windows." Look, people get a feel for a house a lot of the time when they first land on the driveway.
Do you want to hear a JK line, mate? I'm going to give one away on the pod for free, right? So whenever I've got an absolute peach of a house, right, I always take people to, so for example, the £3 million I went to the other day, and I take them out the front, and it's gorgeous. I mean, you've probably seen it, the thatched one that I've got. It's stunning.
Well, you can't not see it, JK, because you send it to us all the time.
Yeah, every day. So I take them out to look at the front of the house, and I say to people, buying a house like this is a bit like buying a luxury car. Now, when you close the door and you walk away from it, if you look back at it, you've bought the right car. And it's the same with this house. You've bought the right house. So every day you come home to this house and you look up to it, you're going to think to yourself, I've definitely bought the right house. No one spends over 3 million quid and buys an ugly house. This is what you've worked for your whole life. This is, this is your present to you.
I think you're like Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed
Errol
that.
Time in Nashville is the single best thing to come across my desk. But no, genuinely, and I stand there with them people and I just say, look, if you bought this house, do you think you'd stand here and look back at it? And they go, yeah, I think I would. It is, you're right. It is a beautiful house. And so I then say, look, you've got to work out your own questions of whether it works for you practically or not. But let's be honest, this is a house that anyone would be envious of owning because it is absolutely stunning. And that line there has helped me sell houses. And buyers have quoted it back to me when I've gone back to value the house. Like sometimes, unfortunately, people go through life events and divorce and bits and pieces, and they come back to you and they say, I always remember when you took me in the garden of this house and you said, look back at the house, and if we look back at it and we love it, we've bought the right house. And so that's a little JK line for free. But I think, again, just asking the right questions, and in terms of the feedback on the viewing, asking them actually directly in the house, do you think this is a house that you'll make an offer on?
Yeah,
and then, but also to caveat that, I don't want to say I'm a high pressure salesperson because I'm not. But do you think it's one that you'd make an offer on? And then they might go, oh, maybe we consider it, blah blah blah. And I say, look, I'm not asking you for an offer now, but what I am asking you is, if you could see yourself living here, great. If you can't, why? Why is that?
Why are you wasting my time? Why are you wasting my time?
Get out my house. But I said, look, at the end of the day, if you don't, what am I trying to say here? If you don't like it after viewing the video, the floor plan, the photos, the brochure, and you're here, what is it? I said, because you won't offend me. It's not my house, but I need to articulate that back to my client because your feedback is valuable. You've got the pound notes in your pocket. You're in the market to buy a £1, £2, £3 million house or whatever it is they're coming to buy, even a 500 grand house. And then when I deliver the feedback at the end of the viewing, I can say to the client, they didn't want it because of A, B, C, D, E, and that feedback helps you lock in the loyalty to your client, because how many times do you hear when you take over from another agent, oh, I never got any feedback. Oh, everyone loves my house, but no one wants to buy it. And it's because people aren't asking the right questions, and they're instruction winners. When you're sitting in the living room or on a dining table when you're kind of pitching to win the business, one of my parts of the pitch is, if people don't want to buy your house, I'll find out why, because I'll ask them the direct questions.
Yeah. And you have to. I think you have to do that, because ultimately you're not able to give constructive feedback. How can the homeowner make any changes? I mean, the reality is we all know what the main issue is when a house is not selling. Of course we do. But if it's getting regular...
What is the main issue? Does it rhyme with rice?
It might do. Yeah, it might.
Or mice.
Speaking of which, did you see the bottlers last night? Declan Rice and Co.
Do you know what, though? Can I just say, and there'll be people that listen to this podcast that absolutely despise football and have got absolutely no interest, Ian's story. But I do FPL every year, which is like the Fantasy Premier League. And whenever I put my team in FPL, all the players play terrible. So I was strategic. I played the universe last night, right? I used my triple captain on Gabriel, and I put him in my team, and Declan Rice. So Arsenal fans, if you're listening to this, that was me that did that to you.
Good. They are the ultimate bottlers. Anyway, sorry for the people there that lost 1 minute of their lives who don't like football. But if you're an Arsenal fan today, no sympathy.
Lol.
You knew it was coming.
And coming second, yeah.
So, yeah, most likely. Although, as a United fan, don't really want to see City lifting the title. So, can something just happen so that maybe the season gets cancelled? Anyway,
we were going to talk about the. I kind of brought it up at the start. We started talking about it, and it's a bit of a contentious point, I suppose, but it is a bit of a headline that's going around at the moment about a potential property crash in 2026.
Yes.
I mean, to basically put it into context, and I am full disclosure, if you've got this far into the podcast, I'm very, very sorry, but I'm going to use this as the headline for the podcast, just to get more views. Clickbaited. You've been baited. So you had to listen to me and Dave talk about our weeks, and talk about viewings. And this is the bit you've actually skipped forward to listen to because you've been clickbaited into it. But basically, let's start from the beginning. So before I give you my view on whether I think a crash is coming, the words of Fred Harrison, is a British economist, author, research director of the Land Research Trust. He's not like your average clickbait forecaster, ironically. He predicted the 1990 crash and also the 2008 crash, both years in advance, using what he calls the 18-year land cycle. Now, you may have heard the 18-year property cycle before, but it's a pattern that he's tracked back over 300 years of economic history. Now, if you love him or loathe him, he's earned the right to be heard. And he actually said, sort of back in the 1930s, an 18-year business cycle was identified in the city of Chicago, and it rested on the theory of a land market. So that operates on a 14-year cycle. And he checked the theory against United States-wide evidence for the 19th century and cross-checked it against Japan, Australia, all over the 20th century. And he identified a cycle as operating within the UK for at least 300 years. Now, he thinks it will be in 2026, the next one. And that is the end of a 14-year cycle in house prices with a business cycle of 18 years. Now, the cycle actually ends in 2028, but it's actually land rather than houses that peaks in 2026. He thinks there'll come a point in 2026 where households will have a fundamental choice between pay the mortgage or put food on the table. I know we talked about, obviously unemployment rates rising. Obviously inflation's down. Supermarket. He thinks his supermarket will win over the bank. The mortgage market, he thinks, will collapse, and he thinks the banks will panic. Now, I've got my view on this in a second, so just bear with me. Don't switch off the podcast and drive off the cliff just yet. And he thinks nothing can stop the crash, other than if prices were limited to more affordable levels. But he thinks the government are going to refuse to contemplate that prospect. Now, in 2008, the mantra was the banks are too big to fail. And in 2026, the more terrifying scenario is that the governments are too big to fail. So that's the case that he makes. And I'll be honest, parts of it are hard to dismiss, but there are some cracks in that. And I think, look, I respect Fred Harrison. You'd be foolish not to. But my problem with taking his prediction as gospel, and why I think the reality for most property owners in 2026 is going to look very different, is his entire model is built on one assumption, that land speculation and credit expansion follow the same rhythm every single cycle. But the rules of the game have changed since 2008. I mean, look, the last crash, the FCA introduced the, what's it called? Is it Mortgage Market Review or something like that? Is it MMR? Yeah. Mortgage Market Review? Yeah. So lenders are now legally required to stress test mortgages. I know that that's been relaxed a bit more recently, but in 2008, I mean, we all remember people getting 125% self-cert mortgages. That massively fueled the collapse, and that just doesn't exist anymore. So you can't build the same bonfire if you've removed most of the fuel. There you go. That's a JK analogy for you. Do you like that one? Can't build the same bonfire if you've removed most of the fuel. Let's clip that soundbite. I'm editing this podcast. I might put it at the start. But he also talks about the binary choice between a mortgage and a supermarket, but he's not accounting for what lenders do before that arrives. So sort of after 2008, things like forbearance agreements are now standard practice. So banks will extend terms, switch borrowers to interest only. They can restructure debt before they repossess. And the FCA simply is not going to, after 2008, they're not going to allow a wave of forced sellers, in my opinion, anyway. The mechanism that kind of triggers his crash, has been sort of almost blocked, really, by regulation, in my view. And obviously, you've got supply issues as well. We're simply not building enough houses. We've got a Labour government that is chucking everything through planning at the moment, which we're seeing. I'm speaking to a lot of land promoters and builders. They're chucking everything just through planning at the moment, but they still can't build fast enough. So we are still chronically undersupplied, and you can't crash a market that doesn't have enough stock to meet demand. Now, I know there's more coming to market, and we know there are quite a few more properties on the market in a lot of cases than there were before. We're not talking about a COVID market, but if the economy does deteriorate sharply, then the BOE has already said already predicted to cut rates by 0.5% anyway, because the swap rates are pricing that in as it stands already. But they could already, if you think any major event like that, we could see 0.1% interest rates again. But I'm not saying nothing's going to happen, but I think parts of the market are genuinely vulnerable. So things like high density new build apartments, over leveraged, buy to let landlord portfolios, the standard, like your first time buyers on 100% mortgages, but they're already quietly correcting anyway, as we've seen in the market. If you look at I know we do a lot of data loft files, but if you look at where things went in 2022, and you look at your data loft data, and you can see, we've talked about it before, where, the 6% interest rates came in, and there was that correction in the market, sometimes 6, 12, 18 months after. But then as things have happened, the market has started to recover. So I think there's already kind of been it's not been spoken about. There has already been a mini correction in there already. So I don't think there's the cliff edge that Harrison's predicting. It's a different conversation. But I think, look, the 18-year cycle is a useful lens to look through, if that makes sense. But it's worth actually understanding that it's a pattern, not laws of physics.
Yeah, listen, you've just articulated that far better than I can. Who knows is the honest answer. Wages are up year on year. That's one thing that I know of. Inflation's come down. There's talk of interest rates coming down. So in terms of a property market, that usually signals we're probably going to see growth. If I'm honest, and if I took my estate agent hat off, we probably don't want too much growth. We've had enough, certainly through that COVID period. And you've just said something quite important to me, which is that we've already started to see a correction in the market, and people just not really talking about it. You're right. Before, when I was going about micro areas falling, if you said to that couple that I've just been talking about that there's going to be some sort of crash, they'd be going, it's already happened in our area, 15%.
Yeah.
So I think it is slowly happening. Every house I'm going to at the moment, JK, every single one has got a graph pointing down.
Yeah.
And in some areas it's steep, and in some areas it is modest. There are some, of course, that are very, 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 very modest and not doing bad at all. You'll always get those higher value areas, perhaps, or areas that are very, very sought after that just stand the test of time anyway.
Well, prime and super prime markets largely are going to be unaffected anyway, because they're the buyers. We were going to have Sam, and I think he's going to come on next week. But back to the pod we did with Sam, when he articulated brilliantly, when those higher interest rates are in, the people at the lower end of the market have got just enough money to buy something cheap. The mid market is the one that always gets hit and is struggle. And then, if there is going to be any sort of correction, it will be the mid market that really suffers, because that's where everyone. If you think that what am I trying to say here? So your households that are sort of stretched on variable rates, lower income brackets, people facing redundancy, they're the ones that are genuinely going to be exposed. But I think that will show up in transaction volumes before it shows up in headline prices. And I think we had that last year. If you look at the transaction volumes last year, and the where we're at already this year, and I think we're predicted to be at 1.2 million transactions this year, which is I think the standard is 1.1 and a bit or something like that. So that mid market will be the one that is affected the most. But wages up and inflation down says to me we're going to avoid a crash. Unemployment up says that we're not out of the woods, but
unemployment up, that's the key.
Yeah, but that that tells we're not out of the woods. But there's also a couple of things that the governments have also got in their toolkit. Where they can do things like stamp duty breaks, and this is a government that's whatever you think about them, and but I'm going to full disclosure, I don't think they're great at all, but their message has always been, we want to drive growth, and the government that wants to drive growth is going to use those to, they're going to be like a wounded animal licking their wounds, but then also kind of come out with their claws, because they're going to be looking at, right, well, do we introduce another stamp duty holiday? What they've got certain things in their economic toolkit that they want to do to drive growth. So I think, the government also has that in their arsenal to be. I mean, it's not going to stop unemployment, of course, but the housing market is the backbone of the economy. But I think the single most important indicator to watch, more than interest rates, and more than asking prices, is that the next 6 to 12 months will be the I think the biggest indicator for unemployment as to where everything goes.
Yeah, indeed. It just remains to be seen. I mean, there's so much coming, isn't there? I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of AI, but obviously that's going to disrupt everything massively over the next few years. And my gut feeling is that we will end up having something that's going to impact people's ability to buy and maybe affect the property market and ultimately everybody in the industry. But at the moment, I can't see much change. I think this year will be okay. I don't see massive growth. I just see.
Are you talking about property market? Or are you talking about AI?
No, property market.
Yeah,
and how it will affect that. But I don't, because of the stuff that we've talked about. Wages are up, inflation is down, interest rates are going to come down again. That underpins a healthy property market. If we have high unemployment, which, to be fair, I don't think we've had horrendous amounts of that in our lifetimes, JK. I mean, I'm mid-40s. I can remember one of the worst recessions, probably with the highest ever interest rates in the early 90s. But I wasn't really playing at it because I was a teenager.
Yeah.
My parents, your parents went through it. And maybe some people listening to this podcast went through it and will laugh at the fact that people whinge about 3.75% interest rates, and rightly so. I think.
But it was different though, because the gap to wages to actual house values was different. So even if you were paying 12, 13%, your house price was 2.5, 3 times your salary, whereas now it's like 6. Yeah,
and the thing that's changed massively. It was funny actually. I was out the other day. On a day out with my lad, half term, and there was an old chap on the table next to me when we were having some food, and I was just earwigging because he was talking about house prices and this new generation, and what he was saying in a nutshell was that it's basically saying to his two friends, you remember like when you needed a car, you had to save up and buy one, and we weren't buying brand new cars.
No.
And then there was no borrowing really. I mean, you could get borrowing, but you couldn't borrow much. But back then it was a case of you worked for it, you saved it up and you bought it. And now you see all these young kids driving around in flash motors. They all want stuff that they can't afford. It's going to end up collapsing the economy. And they were just having this chat. And I always think it's really interesting to hear somebody who's lived through it and been through it and understand their outlook. Because, that is absolutely spot on.
The other thing I would say on that though is I don't think every person of that generation understands the way the world works now. And the gaps between the financial, back then we had to do this, back then
no.
Volkswagen Golf.
I don't disagree with that. Sorry, just to make my point. It's more the mindset of the people in this life right now.
Oh yeah. But there is 2 arguments to be made. One, that the gap between back in the day it was 3 times your salary and you could buy a house. You could also buy a house with no deposit back in the day, so you could just take a full mortgage out for the house, 100% mortgage. And you could also, back in the day, you could do a buy to let with no deposit. So you could just go and get a buy to let mortgage with 0 deposit. So all these people back in the day were buying up houses with 0 deposit. So they built a portfolio and they built wealth around the fact that someone was just going to rent the house, and they took a mortgage out. So they took the risk, But also I think you've got to be smart with your money as well. Like I was speaking to one of our TCA members the other day about rather than leveraging 100 grand on buying a new car, new computers, this, that, and the other for the office, like going down a more cash flow friendly approach, but still getting the same result. So, for example, rather than buying a Tesla outright for 60 grand to get the first year capital allowance, do something with the cash that you've got in the bank and do a HP agreement instead. So pay £700 a month rather than dumping out 60 grand straight away, because you can utilize the 60k that you've got in the bank already elsewhere. Take a chunk of that, invest it in, and get some money back on it. Then rather than buying 5 new Apple Mac computers outright and spending £8-9 grand on that, lease them from Apple at cost as well for £110 a month, and you could probably earn money back in savings. Even on a basic level, get 3-4% on savings for a start on that money. Look, that's not going to break any records. Admittedly, I'm just using it as an example, but just being sort of cash clever in the subscription lifetime that we live in at the moment. And just really quickly on AI, because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, and I'm conscious that we were going to do a quick pod today, is that Elon Musk a couple of weeks ago did an interview, and this year he reckons, I'm sure it's there already, they're just hiding it from us, that tinfoil hat and everything, but they reckon this year artificial super intelligence will be here, and it will be smarter than any human ever by the end of this year, if not early next year. And after that, we're only 2 years away from the predicted AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which, again, I'm not going to explain on this podcast. Do your own research. I'm happy to do another pod on it, if there's enough demand, because it's something that I'm looking at a lot. And AI is something I'm really interested in. Things like Claude-bot, OpenClaw, agents, etc. There's loads of things I'm going through at the moment that we haven't got time to talk about on this pod. But there's so much that, just on the unemployment thing, just capping that off with AI, places like Goldman Sachs estimate that AI could expose the equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs globally to automation. So the Institute for Public Policy, for example, their research suggested up to 8 million jobs could be affected in the medium term. And the heaviest exposure is going to be in like admin, sort of professional. So we talked about it before we hit record. Customer service roles, call center roles.
Yeah.
And the nuance is that job exposure doesn't actually automatically mean job losses. History tells us that technology creates new roles as it eliminates old ones, like the Industrial Revolution, for example. Computing, the internet, all of them caused disruption, but they all generated new forms of employment. So I think, for example, there'll be, like, where coders struggle, they'll then become prompt engineers, for example. But again, sorry, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. Maybe it's for another time. Maybe we'll get an AI expert on, and
it's definitely,
we can chew the fat.
Yeah, we should definitely do it, mate. It's definitely another pod. Right now, I've got to get to take on, and I know that you do too. So let's save it.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, look, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I'm sorry we clickbaited you in with the property crash. It's not going to happen. I think it will be sustainable, but obviously the next 6 to 12 months, keep an eye on unemployment. But it is something we're going to be talking about in our next quarterly update. So just a quick plug for TCA, our next quarterly market update, which we will be writing in April to send out. That's right. We're reviewing Q1, aren't we? In April. So that'll be a big factor, and I think that'll be a lot of things that in that report and update that your clients or potential clients that you're sending to will be interested to know, and it will, without doubt, position you as an authority. So if you're serious about getting into the premium end of the market, at mid to upper end, then give us a call or get in touch now, because now is a great time to capitalize while the market is busy.
Love it. Nice one, JK. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, guys.